six. We got 9. We ain't coming no more. Since y'all know we here, give me my theme music.
Welcome to episode 2, week 2, what happened on Saturday with Marlon Kerner. What a weird, wild, awesome week of college football. Marlon, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Josh. How's everything with you? And I hope you got to go spend some time at Wingfest this weekend watching college football.
I did not. I dedicated my whole weekend to quote-unquote research for our new show here, and I convinced my wife that I was allowed to watch Saturday. And a Sunday football game was a little rough. The Northwestern Rutgers noon special on CBS wasn't must-see TV. But, we're going to start a new segment here each week before we have a guest on, and we're honored today that we're going to have Donald Jones, former Youngstown State Penguin and Buffalo Bills wide receiver, join us to talk about his kind of amazing journey to the NFL, as well as previewing the matchup week 2, Youngstown State against your sleepy Buckeyes from week 1. So before we do that, though, we'd like to take maybe some key observations and takeaways that you had from the weekend slate of college football.
Absolutely. I'm grateful and thankful to kick off this new segment of just my observations. And I have 5 of them, right? So I think the first observation that I saw this weekend was the Pac-12. Like, for a conference that's going to look totally different next year, they are 13-0. USC has 2 wins in the conference on this young season. And it's the first time since 1932 that every team in the Pac-12 won their season opener. And they've been doing it in spectacular fashion. USC put up 66 last weekend against Nevada. And then you look at it, Oregon put up 81 against Portland State on Saturday. So the Pac-12 is crushing it. They have 5 teams in the top 25. Could this be the year that they actually get a team in the college football playoff? Time will tell, but that conference looks great so far on the young season. I've got to get a nod out to my former teammate and now head coach at Wisconsin. Luke Fickell played the University of Buffalo in our own backyard. They hung tough up until halftime, but they had 2 rushers go over 100 yards, and both of them had 2 rushing touchdowns for him to get his first win against the University of Buffalo. And then we got to go ahead. We heard the clip from Dion and the upset that Colorado was able to have over Baylor, but we also had another upset. Texas State knocked off Baylor. Colorado knocked off TCU, so excuse me for misspeaking. But Texas State, TJ Finley went for 3 touchdowns, rushed for another. And Coach Kenny got his first win in Texas State, and they brought in 50 people out of the transfer portal. So, again, another person took Coach Prime's playbook of revamping that roster, and it paid dividends as Texas State went into Baylor and knocked them off. And then we got to talk about my Buckeyes. I know everyone is worried about it, but I want to throw that up real quick, right? Because the sky is not falling. So, Buckeye fans, kind of take a breather. I know it wasn't what you thought it was going to look like. We did start slow. But I expected that. Ohio State historically has started slow the last few seasons. We started slow against Notre Dame. We started slow the year before that when we played Minnesota a couple years ago. So it's okay. What I want to look at and what I want everybody to see is how well our defense played. Our defense played amazing. So when you look at that, they held Indiana to 153 total yards. 153 total yards, only 82 yards passing. So if you're going to take anything away from what happened on Saturday is this could be something that the Silver Bullets are back. The defense looked great. Sonny Styles looked great. Josh Proctor played great. That young secondary played well. The run defense was there. So I know it was a pedestrian offensive performance, but historically, we always have a week 1 pedestrian offense explosion. So I look forward to them to get back on track this week against Youngstown State. And then we just got to give it up to Coach Prime. They did their thing. And they looked great, and it was something that nobody expected, but he had them believing, and you've got to give that nod. And I'll throw another one. Florida State knocked off LSU in the first top 10 matchup of the season. It looked great. And then if we talk about the game from Monday night, I loved what Duke was able to do against Clemson. So it's going to be a great year of college football. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next. And those are my observations from the official week 1 of college football.
All right, let's dive into a couple of those. First of all, for us non-Buckeye fans in Buckeye Nation, what is a silver bullet?
So a silver bullet is just kind of a term that we have when our defense is flying around and they're making plays, and they have that stymieing defense that we've come to love. And so that's the moniker that we have for it, is just those guys are flying around and making plays. And when you think about it, on Saturday, what you were able to see was, I know it's only 1 week, so I'm not going to sit up here and say they're completely back, but it bodes well of what they were able to do against a Big Ten opponent, held them to under 155 yards of total offense for an entire game. That bodes well for what you're going to do. I think the trend continues against Youngstown State and then Western Kentucky going forward. And then let's hope they have that same performance against Notre Dame later on in this month. But it bodes well to get that confidence early. So that's kind of like some of the old things when Notre Dame had that, when the Broncos, I was a Broncos fan growing up. No, don't hold it against me. When they had that Orange Crush defense, right?
Yep. The black shirts at Nebraska. So that defensive identity is important, and it's kind of rare at Ohio State lately, right? It's been the offense for years and years and years now that has carried the load, and I can understand why fans kind of freak out if they only see 20 points on the board. But hey, you held a Big Ten opponent to 3 points on the road. That's as much of an accomplishment as hanging 50 on somebody.
Exactly.
So all right, let's talk about the big story of the weekend and maybe get your perspective. First of all, you played DB. You were a captain at Ohio State. You played, in the NFL. You're a high-end athlete. Have you ever seen somebody do something like Travis Hunter did this weekend?
The closest I can think of it, Buckeye fans remember Chris Gamble. So Chris Gamble was a two-way player for Ohio State, played corner at a high level, ended up going to play for the Carolina Panthers, drafted pretty high there. That's the first person that comes to mind as when I think of Buckeyes that did it. But I don't think he did it as much as they had Travis Hunter incorporated into the game plan. I think they brought Gamble in a few times. I don't think he had any game where he was over 129 or 120 offensive plays and defensive plays combined. Travis Hunter was amazing and phenomenal. We knew what he was coming out, the number one overall recruit. Everybody thought he was going to go to Florida State, and he said, I'm going to go learn from the best corner to ever do it. And so that took him to Jackson State. And it was just amazing to see his growth and what he was able to do over the last 2 years playing at Jackson State. But everyone always wants to consider HBCUs and the FCS as kind of an inferior kind of caliber of opponent, right? Like, it's going to look different when they come up to the FBS and play. And what I loved was there was no drop-off. He performed like that when he was at Jackson State and was a featured person in the offense. It was amazing. He had 11 catches for 119, 120 yards or so and a touchdown and then had an interception. So when you think about what he was able to do on Saturday, playing both ways, playing in 110 on the field, it was hot. The conditioning alone, what he was able to do. And then you hear his post-game interview where he's like, I'm not even tired. I'm ready to go play some more. It's just amazing to see him be able to do that at a high level. Now, time will tell if he can consistently do that on a week in and week out basis. But it was phenomenal to watch, and it's something that I know I would never be able to do.
Maybe tell people, was it as impressive to you mentally as it was physically? Because I think people obviously, focus on the snap count, the heat, the physical aspect. Everybody can kind of understand. But maybe take us through it mentally, what it's like to be, a full-time X on the field and then a DB as well.
Right. And that's another great point that you bring up, is the fact that we talk about his conditioning and just being in the shape that he needs to be physically to do that in that type of temperature. But there's also just the mental aspect of the game, because you have to be able to look at the scouting report, know what you're going to do defensively as a corner, what combination of routes are going to run, how you're going to play things, and then also be able to learn the playbook and learn the checks and everything on the offensive side of what you have to do. And if they get in this coverage, what route you're going to kind of break off, what the checks are going to be. So him to be able to do that mentally as well in that type of environment, you're going down at TCU, you're going to go into a crazy environment. It's hostile. I think I saw a clip over the weekend of some of the fans calling him overrated. He kept his composure, right? He kept his composure throughout the entire process. He didn't get too high. He didn't get too low. He didn't get down on himself when he dropped an easy touchdown late or early in the game when he beat their best corner. So he just stayed even keeled throughout the entire process and had no mental errors. And when the game was on the line, he made a crucial third down catch and then the interception, which is amazing, of how they coached it through the double slant coming through with the wheel, the flat route coming out, and he passed it off to the linebacker and safety, and then jumped the flat route and picked it off and stopped easy points for TCU. So it was just an amazing game to watch. And so I'm curious to see what they do. But I mean, when you think about the mental aspects that sometimes we overlook of just being able to play at a high level on the offensive side and the defensive side, and the concentration that it takes, and him to do that in that type of environment and that type of heat, shows me how much more of a player he is, not even just on the physical side, but the mental aspect of the game as well.
It's really incredible. It's tough to watch a game from now on and see guys cramp up when you compare what he did. Talk to me about Coach Prime. Everybody obviously knows who he is. People our age, even younger, know his cachet as a player. What do you think it is about him as a coach? There have been many Hall of Famers who've tried coaching. Magic Johnson, Wayne Gretzky, Larry Bird, every different sport. Varying degrees of success. Some of these guys are terrible coaches. They've admitted themselves because, they can't translate to the common athlete as opposed to the Hall of Fame great athlete. What do you think it is about Deion in particular that allows him to, A, get these guys to buy in and then run like a disciplined football team on his first Saturday with 50, 60, 70 new guys?
Well, I think Deion is just a polarizing athlete in his own right. So when you think about it, he already had, as the young kids would say, he had the street cred or the credibility coming in, Hall of Fame, cornerback, just flashy. Everybody always growing up wanted to emulate their game after Deion. Everyone wanted to be prime time. So he had that swagger that you want. And so he's never been short on confidence. And that's what I love about Deion. He's going to be unapologetically himself. And so what I think is his personality, his persona translates well, and the young kids of today can identify that because he's somebody that they've been emulating since they were a young kid. When you think about Pop Warner, everybody was trying to be Deion and the high stepping and the flashiness. And so he took that same persona and was like, that's just me. But I think his personality resonates well with the young people of today, and they're able to kind of look at him and say, I want to be like him. But then he just does some amazing things the way he talks. He talks directly to them. He doesn't talk down to them. He brings them up and he builds them up. And so his style is different. I grew up with some coaches that would talk down to you. They would belittle you. It was kind of like, we're going to crush your spirit and then try to say, you're going to listen to me. That's not his style. His style is going to be able to like really uplift them and say, this is how you do it. I've been in your shoes. I know that's how it is. So it's a more of a positive style. And I'm not saying that he's not hard on them, because I'm sure he is, because he understands you still have to be hard on the player. But just the way he delivers it, you can tell it's different. And that also resonates. I think the one thing that he did was he understood that it's not just him. So he assembled an amazing cast of coaches who are also able to get his message across of what he wanted to look like. And so those guys are believing. And then I think also the fact that he took 68 new players from the transfer portal and was able to get them to come in and buy in and to believe. So he took his own belief and was able to instill that of, it's just us, right? When you listen to the opening clip, it's just us. Like, nobody believes in us. All we have to do is believe in ourselves and then go out here and shock the world. And I think he's going to take that mantra and have that all season long, because they're going to be underdogs. People are saying it was just one game, slow down. When they didn't give him a chance and they're like, he's going about it wrong, he's not doing this, they're going to be outmatched. Well, he's shown they're not outmatched. Now, do I think they're undefeated? No. Do I think they'll probably lose a game or two this year? Yes. But time will tell. I mean, could they go undefeated? Yes, they could. They could shock the entire world and have an amazing season and be playing in the playoffs. We don't know. We're going to take it week in, week out. But I think he's doing an amazing job so far of getting them to buy into what they do well. And I think they're going to be well coached, and they're going to clean up some things and get better. And they have a tough test this week coming up at home against Nebraska. But if they can get that off and get 2-0, then they can get some things rolling, and now momentum's on their side. And then people are going to start wondering, okay, like, is this for real?
Yeah.
What have they done? What are they trying to build in Boulder, Colorado? So
it's fun too, because I think there's that element of, oh, he doesn't fit the mold of what a college coach should be. He's not Nick Saban. He's not Jim Harbaugh. He's not Brian Kelly. There's this narrative, and I think a lot of the old school media, some of the old school football guys were really hesitant to embrace the fact that this guy could be brash and he could, Lee Corso on College Game Day, God love Lee Corso at 88 years old. He's like, I don't agree with what Deion's doing to build a program here. But this is the way of the world now. Money is such a huge part of college athletics, as we all know, and he's not going to sit there for 2 or 3 years and pretend that the guys who are on a 1-11 Colorado team are his guys. So, he was hired to come in and make a splash and make a difference and win right away. And, there's that famous clip of him basically telling all the guys to pack their bags who were there last year. And I mean, maybe not the best way to have the message come across. But, this is big time business now. This is big time athletics, and I really like the fact that he's kind of just sticking it. I don't think he's doing it on purpose, or he might not even care, but I think he's sticking it to the establishment of college football and kind of the traditional way that quote unquote should be done, because that stuff drives me nuts, because these guys have been holier than thou forever about the players getting paid and sponsorship money and NIL and realignment, while they've enriched themselves to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars, and they flip programs constantly, and they walk out like Brian Kelly did on Notre Dame before even the Notre Dame was eliminated from the playoff chase. So I love the fact, he's fun, but he's also like really thumbing your nose at probably the last 20 years of hypocrisy in college coaching, in my opinion.
Exactly. And you think about it, who saw firsthand what the NCAA was? Deion. So it's not like he doesn't have the credibility. He played, and now he's coaching, and he went to the NFL, so he understands what it was like. This is a guy who was good enough to play professional baseball while he was in college, right? So it's not like he doesn't understand the inner workings of the NCAA and understands their shortcomings because he's lived it. And so now you can go and look at a guy and says, okay, I understand historically how we've done it, but somebody's got to break the mold. Why not me? And he has enough confidence to say, I can do this, and I can find a different way. And now it's looking like it's going to pay dividends, and you can show how you can become competitive in a short amount of time by using the transfer portal, which I like to call free agency for college football. And so now you can say, okay, this is how you build a program. This is how you can competitive really quickly. It doesn't mean they're going to win a national championship this year. It doesn't even mean they're going to win their conference this year. But this team is going to be exciting. And so when you have to break the mold, it has to look different. And I think what people don't like is because he doesn't fit the mold traditionally what we've seen. And so when you hear guys like Corso, they did it their own way. They did it, and they all fit this one mold of we're going to recruit, we're going to do this, we're going to come in, we're going to go and find 5-star blue chip athletes, we're going to build a program from slow, we're going to take a long time. Deion understands the business of college football is you got to win now, and you got to win quickly. You get 1 or 2 years, and then you're out. And so he understands that his leash is short. And so if he doesn't show progress with the trustees at Colorado, they're going to say, hey, you know what? This project is not working. We're going to move on, and we're going to go back to our old traditional way. And then they're going to be 1-11, and then he's going to have to go find a new job. So he took a different route. And that's what I give Colorado credit for is that, you know what? We want to look different. We want the traditional route. Traditional route got us 1-11 and not the amount of athletes we need on the field at every position. And Deion said these guys aren't good enough. And so that's, while it's tough to hear, that's the business of college athletics now. And you need to understand right now with NIL and everything the way it goes, this is a now business that is going to translate into how you have to approach things differently. And so I'm glad you brought that up because Prime does not fit the mold of a traditional college coach at all. And I think that's what's going to make people want to go and play for him because he's going to tell you unapologetically, like, hey, you can't play here. And I can respect that as a player, as an athlete coming in. Hey, you know what? You're not good enough. Okay, fine. I'll go take my opportunity somewhere else. And if I don't get an opportunity at another school, if a coach promises me something different, Prime says I can come there and play now. You can compete, or hey, you got to come here and earn a spot. I can respect that because I like to compete as an athlete. And I think it's going to pay dividends for what Colorado can attract and the athletes they're going to bring in the future as well.
I bet you there's a lot of people down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that maybe wish that maybe LSU would have hired him instead of Brian Kelly last year, considering the week one. And you and I, two guys sitting here in Buffalo, New York, on a college football podcast, are talking Colorado Buffaloes football. Like, when is the last time that ever happened? So just the national cachet of it, and it's going to pay dividends down the line. What kid now, Deion comes into your living room? I mean, how do you say no?
You can't. I mean, you have to have a serious conversation and consideration of, when he comes in, he's going to tell you, listen, I have the right staff surrounded by your kid, and more importantly, his love for the kid and them being prepared to either go to the next level and play in the NFL, or hey, listen, this is it. This is the end of the road for your son, and he's going to be able to have those real conversations with parents and say, listen, I'm not only helping them be prepared to play their best on Saturdays and give them the best chance to make it to the NFL. But if they don't go there, they're going to be prepared to be able to be successful off the field. They're going to make sure they go to class. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be on the honor roll and do those things, but they're going to graduate. And so all those things are going to happen. He's building something, and it looks different. And families are going to take note and listen. And athletes are going to say, you know what? At least he's going to shoot to me straight. And I can respect the straight shooter at all point in times. And so I think that's going to make other coaches adapt their coaching style and say, here's the message that I need to give you, and this is what it's going to look like. And in 3 years, if you have success that I think you can have on this field, you're going to go off and go play in the NFL. And if not, hey, at least you're going to get your school paid for. You're going to graduate. You're going to have a great success and have an opportunity to have another career waiting for you when you graduate from this university. So I think it's going to be good for sport as a whole. But yes, you're going to have a lot of detractors of people coming at him and his style. But it doesn't matter. These young kids are there definitely listening to it.
Jealousy is ugly. Ugly.
Huge Buckeye fan. I'm just kidding. Former Bills wide receiver, Donald Jones. Donald, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on to talk some college football, right? Because everybody talks a lot about Bills football, and we love our Bills, and we're going to see what they do here on the 11th. But I want to talk about college football and just your observations of this weekend, what you liked, what you didn't like, who is in your top 5, who's your kind of leading the person for so far Heisman Trophy winner. I know it's early to say, but just your thoughts on the true week 1 of college football.
I mean, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I got a chance to watch a couple of games this weekend. Obviously, I think everybody watched that TCU Colorado game. That was the one that I was really, really tuned into. And then Florida State. But to bring up Ohio State, first of all, my son is a huge Ohio State fan. I think we're supposed to be out there for the game for the Ohio State Notre Dame game.
Lucky man. Lucky man.
So, that'd be a good one. He'd love to be on here and not me right now. He's a huge Ohio State fan. I'm like, bro. Last night we were watching Florida State, and he's like, man, Ohio State is trash, y'all. I'm like, I'm a Florida State fan. I'm like, whatever. But yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on. So when you talk about that Florida State game, now you and I texted earlier because I was just laughing, like, who you got tonight? And I was like, I'm taking Florida State. But talk to me about what you saw. Like, what made the first top 10 matchup interesting? And, a lot of people are going to say that LSU was ranked too high. I don't think so. I think they deserved it based off the schedule and their record from last year. But talk me through about what you saw Florida State was able to do in the second half against LSU.
I think just the combination of size and speed that Florida State has this year is reminiscent of, I think, of an SEC team, and I think they were able to match LSU's size and speed. But I think the difference is the quarterback that Florida State has, and he played last year and he played well last year. And I think his experience in those big moments, I think, he was able to obviously make the big time plays when they needed to be made. And I think the size at the receiver position for Florida State was too much. I think that was obviously Florida State has the defensive end that's really good. He's probably going to be a top 10 pick for sure. He might even be a top 5, but he's really good. I just think that you really saw like an old school looking Florida State team, where everybody's like, man, Florida State might be back. If they stay healthy, they'll be good this year.
So let me ask both of you guys a question. Both of you as former D1 athletes and then NFL guys. For a guy like me who's just watching college football as a fan, do you guys watch the games differently? Like, what are you watching for? Like, what do you see? Did you guys feel that coming from Florida State in the second half? Like, maybe give our listeners some keys or some kind of insider tips from guys who played in the NFL. Like, what to look for to kind of help you decide like what's going on during the game.
I mean, like I said, I'm a Florida State fan. So I knew kind of what they had going into that game, even coming from from last year, the big receivers, and the quarterback play. Marlon and I, like you said, we texted earlier in the day, and it was like, yeah, I think Florida State's going to take this one. But to answer your question, I watch all games differently, whether it's youth, high school, it doesn't matter. I see things differently. I coach high school and youth. I've been an official here in New Jersey, high school football. So, I mean, I see the game from like all different sides. So my son's like, Dad, how'd you see that? I'm like, no, I've been around this game a long time. So I see things forming that other people don't. So I'm sure Mark will say that.
Yeah, I think as a former athlete, I've never been an official, and I definitely didn't want to coach. But I think I look at it from the way we were taught as professionals to look at film, right? Like you're looking at the formations, you're looking at, all right, this person should be blitzing. So I'm looking to see if the quarterback or the receivers are seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. Like, okay, will they do this? Will they audible to this? Can you do this? Can you really just kind of see what's happening? Because the game is it's easy to be an armchair quarterback because you can see all that stuff and we can recognize that a little bit faster. Like, okay, who's tipping it? I'm looking to see how they pull, how they handle the competition level when they fold. I think when I watched that Colorado game, I said, okay, mentally, are they tough enough to survive the onslaught that we know is going to come? Like, you knew TCU was going to make a run. You knew TCU was like, okay, they're playing us tough. They're going to do all these things, but we're going to find a way to make a play. And that never happened, right? That was never something that Colorado did mentally. And so that was really what I saw that was impressive. What Dion was able to do with those young men is they believed from start to finish that they could win. And then I just looked at like, okay, where's the mismatch? Do you see this? How are they doing it? I'm looking as a defensive back. I'm always watching how receivers come off the line of scrimmage. Like, okay, this guy is really good at getting off the line. He's doing a really good job of separating, making sure that he's giving his quarterback room to throw the ball. I watched Ohio State, and I thought the young quarterback really locked onto his receivers a lot. So I kind of look at games and look at teams differently. But, when you think about it, it's just can they go out there and play football and make plays on Saturday? And Ohio State was able to overcome a slow start on offense and really extend that 28-game win streak to 29. I mean, Florida State, that was something that was totally an onslaught. I hadn't really watched them. I knew they had won 6 in a row last year, but it was pretty amazing to watch them go like, okay, they manhandled in the second half, like from the trenches on, like they affected LSU's quarterback. They stopped the run. They matched up with their receivers. I mean, it was just a master class on talent, and Florida State has a lot. So there's definitely a team I'm going to be like, okay, they're going to make some noise in the ACC this year.
I think, like, for me, like, I'm a play caller, right? I call our offense. And so, again, because I've played the game, because I coached the game, because I've been an official, it's almost like, how do I want to watch the game in that moment? Do I really want to look for penalties right now? Or do I, I get a kick out of now at this point, and I never did past, especially as a player and as an analyst. Really now watching the chess match between the offense and the defensive coordinator. And I don't think, fans, a typical fan is not going to understand, as an offensive coordinator, everybody has their different style of how they attack the defense. Most people will tell you, I'm going to take what they give you. But when a team can counter what you do, what do you do to counter that? Then when they counter that, what do you do to counter that? And I think it's really fun for me now to watch the chess match between. These people get paid a lot of money to do this stuff, and so it's fun to watch it.
Now, that's really a formal official. How do you give the grades to the conferences and the officials? Like, I expect them to miss some calls, right? But I mean, when you look at, like, I looked at that TCU game, there was some blatant holds. Like, yeah. Dude, how do you miss him turning to get to the edge and you not call that? Like, so how would you grade the overall officiating this past week?
Man, so officiating is tough to do. I did it at the high school level where we might have had 5 or 6 officials. I mean, college and pros, they have 7, 8 guys on the field. And everybody's assigned to a certain position. Personally, there could be a penalty on every play. And so it's really on did you see it? Did you not see it? Sometimes things happen so fast, and it happened to me a bunch of times. And you're watching it, and you're like, "Did I just see that?" And then you want to throw the flag, then you're like, "It's kind of late to throw the flag now." Like it's so many different things, and you just got to get used to it. But there are some things where you're like, "Bro, how did you do that? That's ridiculous." If you're assigned specifically to the left side of the offensive line, and you miss a hole by the left tackle, which is crazy. So I think officiating overall, from college to pros, even in high school, it needs to get a lot better. I think personally that they should be more full time, like NBA officials, like college basketball officials, because I think that they just have so much. Like the officials can really change the game. And there's so much money being made in people's careers on the line. Whether you're talking about coaches, you're talking about kids on the field these days, the transfer portal, and how coaches can just push them into the transfer portal. I feel like you need to be full-time as well, just like the coaches and just like the players on the field. I don't think that they should be able to have like another job and all I do is focus on this on the weekend. Like, nah, bro, you need to be doing this full-time. And you get paid what you get paid, and that's fine. But this needs to be your only job, the only thing that you focus on. Oh.
I couldn't agree with you more, and especially for like just even the optics of it, with how much money there is in gambling, and on the line with the gamblers and all. And if you got some part-time dude who's also working on the side as as a fireman or something else, there's just always that impropriety that's always hanging out there. Like, what could an official be paid to do? Not saying that happens, but you're right. A full-time official getting paid commensurate to what everybody else in the sport gets paid, I think would take away a lot of those questions and some of those doubts. Donald, we had you on. I know you and Marlon are friends. Talk to me about Youngstown State, like being a Penguin, and how they're going to go into Ohio State this week and maybe knock them off. People around here I don't think know a lot about Youngstown State. So what can you share about going there and how you ended up there, and what chances you think they might have this weekend?
I mean, I went there out of JUCO. I was supposed to go to Ole Miss, and I committed to Ole Miss, and it was a lot of things happened. The coaching staff was fired. New coach came in, who was Houston Nutt. He just didn't want any JUCO guys at the time, which is crazy now when you watch the landscape with the transfer portal. I mean, JUCO is just like, you go to JUCO and then you're ahead for 2 years. You can go anywhere from JUCO these days. But back then, there was certain schools or certain coaches that just really didn't believe in it. So I ended up at Youngstown State, which happened late in the process, in the recruiting process. It's one of those programs where if you watch college football, like on the FCS level, that Youngstown State has traditionally been a better program. So for me, it was like, I seen them. I think the year before I went there, they were in the playoffs. I seen them on TV, so I was like, all right, man, I can go there. They were just on TV last year. And so that's kind of how that happened. In terms of going into Ohio State, I mean, you got to go in there really. We played Ohio State my first year. And actually, that's how they got me to go, because it's like, yo, man, we're going to play Ohio State in the Horseshoe, then the next year we're going to play Pitt. And I was like, ooh, I can go make a name for myself against Ohio State. And I remember walking into the Horseshoe and just it's crazy. The stadium is huge. The campus, as we rolled through the campus on the buses, and, it was different from Youngstown State, obviously. You have to get over that starstruck moment very fast. And those guys are going to be starstruck. It's going to be Marvin and the rest of the guys Ohio State has. And most of the kids at Youngstown State are from Ohio. And so I'm sure they kind of idolize those. You can't get over that part of it, then you'll lose it. Right. From the if they're able to get over that, they can make it a game. Ohio State played Indiana. I'm sure Ohio State fans weren't really satisfied with the way they looked against Indiana. So I'm sure Youngstown State, the kids from Youngstown State, that gives them some sort of confidence. But there's a lot that happens right for Youngstown and wrong for Ohio State.
Marlon, talk to me about what it's like to play a team like Youngstown State when you're at Ohio State.
I think as Donald mentioned, right, like when you think about playing Youngstown State, he talked about the starstruck that goes along with it when you're coming to a stadium that big, like it's 105,000 people. They're going to be scarlet and gray there. You're not going to have that many fans. And on the flip side, for Ohio State, they know they're at home. They know when you look at this game, you're like, all right, when you look at your schedule, you look at like, we should win this game, right? Like they may play us tough, but talent-wise, we have more talent on our roster. We should be able to make some big plays. And yes, they may slow us down a little bit. We may figure out what they're going to do, and then we're going to go out and take care of business. So for Ohio State, they have to make sure they don't fall into the trap of we should beat them and we're going to win this game. I think when you look at the prime example this week was Texas State going down into Baylor and knocking off Baylor at home, right? Like you hear all year long and all week long, like you should win this team. Like you should win this game. You should beat this team. They're not going to match up with you. You still got to play. You still got to get between the yard lines and get out there and play. And those guys at Youngstown State, they still have scholarships, just like Ohio State gets scholarships. You may not get the same amount of five-star athletes, but with the transfer portal, people, you can kind of equalize something. I think people are now seeing that it doesn't matter where you go. You just need to have the opportunity and the exposure. And you're going to have some guys that are hungry. And so if I'm the head coach of Youngstown State, my message is you're an underdog. Like nobody expects you to win this game. Like people are thinking you're going to get blown out. I haven't even checked the spread yet, which I probably should have. But by all accounts, Ohio State should win this game. So he's got to be and take a master class on getting his guys to believe in themselves, and then just see what happens on Saturday. Now, Ohio State needs to come back and kind of do what they did on defense, right? When you look at what their defense is able to do against Indiana, I mean, they shut them down on all sides of the ball. They couldn't really complete the ball. They couldn't or throw too many passes. They couldn't really run the ball. I think they had about 155 yards of total offense. That's dominance on defense. Mm-hmm. And so they need to do the same thing on defense against Youngstown State, and it starts early. If I'm Ryan Day, I might be a little bit more aggressive, take some shots. I mean, there's no way that your star receiver has 2 catches. Like that can't happen. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. can't go into a game and only have 2 catches. He's got to get him into the game plan more because good things happen. It'll open up the run attack that he wants to exploit. And then once you get your quarterback some rhythm, remember, you're trying to get him some continuity and some consistency for the game and the showdown in a couple weeks at South Bend, which is going to be their hostile environment. That's the first big hostile environment they're going to go into, that they're going to face. And it's not going to be pretty. You're not going to have Ohio State fans. Well, you will, because we do travel well. It'll be probably split, but it's still going to be Notre Dame fans cheering. And you want to make sure your quarterback can make some plays in tough situations in a tough environment. So it's going to be interesting. Now, Donald, you talked about that JUCO route. I want to go back to high school. Like, let's talk about high school. Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back before you got there. What'd you play? Like, how old were you when you were like, I want to play college football and play in the NFL? When did you start playing football? When did you know that you could play at that next level? And then just kind of talk about your high school transition from what it was like to get recruited, and then you decided to go to JUCO.
When I was young, obviously at the youth level, I was good. I was scoring a bunch of touchdowns every week, like 2, 3, 4 touchdowns a week. But, when you're a kid, like everybody thinks, especially these days, everybody thinks their kid is like the next whatever. But when I got to high school, I was an option quarterback. And then when I got to high school, which again these days is crazy because everybody thinks they're quarterback, running back, wide receiver until you get to high school. And then those coaches in the high school level are like, no, you're going to play DB, or you're going to play linebacker, or whatever the case may be. and it's like a culture shock. So I was an option quarterback, and I was moved to receiver. And I had to learn the position. I always had really good hands with learning routes. Never had a receiver coach. So honestly, I didn't really learn how to run routes until I was in the NFL. That's a whole nother story. So I go through high school and I'm just making plays, punt returns, kick returns to the house, taking wide receiver screens, all of that stuff. And then I played in like all-state game in New Jersey, which is North Jersey versus South Jersey. And I had it, like I got MVP of that game. This was like all of the guys that were going to big time schools. And I ended up with like 190 something all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns, got MVP of the game. To rewind it a little bit, going to JUCO, deciding to go to JUCO. I was going to camps. This was the other thing. I was going to like the Nike camps, all the different camps that they had. At that time, all of the colleges would be at specific camps. And I always had an underdog mentality. And so anytime I knew that there was a guy who was a 5-star guy, I would step up. We were doing one-on-ones. And if it was my role, we came out in the same class, like, if he steps up, I'm stepping up. And I would dog every single time. And so I knew that I could play with anybody. We had Malcolm Jenkins, who was from Ohio State guy, obviously. He's from, he actually is from where I live now. We would battle. We didn't play each other in high school, but we would go like 7-on-7 and things like that. And I would always get off. So I was I just knew, like, man, I have something here. It was just, when it came to school, I didn't really, I came from inner city and I wasn't into school like that, So I ended up going to JUCO. I get to JUCO and it was some old heads there that were good. And it was dudes, Lackawanna Junior College in Pennsylvania now is one of the top schools in the country in terms of JUCO. They put them out every single year. There's like 10 guys that go Division I. I think for my year, we had like 18 Division I guys. And so we, when I first got there, we were like 23 years old. I was 18 out of high school. And he's a grown man. And, again, I was balling. And, we go down to – so I always had that mentality. Like, you really can play with anybody. I always wanted to get to the NFL. That was always my dream from a little kid. And then, when I really was getting recruited, I felt like, they recruiting all of these dudes that are better than me. And so I always had a chip on my shoulder. When I had to go to Youngstown, we ended up playing against Akron in a 7-on-7. And again, I just dogged everybody that I went against. So I always had that mentality I could play at the top level. It was just getting my opportunity. And then once that opportunity came, man, I was undrafted, obviously, because of the health stuff. But that didn't really hold me back too much. It just was like on the route.
What was it like playing JUCO? If, like you said, some guys are 3, 4, or 5 years older than you. Like, if everybody's not on the same page, did you feel like everybody was kind of in it for themselves? Did it not feel like a team?
No, you know what? I would imagine that like California JUCOs are like that because they're more like community colleges where everybody kind of goes home at night. Lackawanna is a school where you come there from far, and right, so everybody lives in the same dorm. Yes, everybody wants to get to the next level, but Coach Mark Duda out there runs that like a big time program, and we bought into each other. My first year there, we were undefeated. I think we gave up like 1 touchdown that year. We went out to Glendale, Arizona for a bowl game. We played against Glendale. We won that. So everybody, even though everybody wanted to get to the next level, we were really a team to the point where we got in fights together. That was crazy, and we're all still cool to this day. Like, we go back to the spring game. We're talking about a JUCO team, not even like the big school team. Like, we all still talk to each other on Facebook, whatever it is. So that wasn't one of our issues in terms of guys wanting to do their own thing. We battled together, and we were really, really good.
That's really interesting. So, before we let you go here, Donald, be remiss if we didn't talk about you as a Buffalo Bill. Obviously, we're on the Cover One network, which focuses on the Bills. Marlon and I are trying to create our own little niche here, talking college football. But the other podcast I host with Don Purdy, who gave a shout out to you, If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo, we always like to ask guys about their draft day and their experience on draft day. Can you just talk us through, what it was like for you the year, of the draft and how you came to Buffalo and maybe what you thought coming to Buffalo?
Man, all right. So draft day comes, and I knew I wasn't gonna be a high pick only because of the health. And I knew that I had this kidney disease. Nobody else knew. My agents didn't even know. It came out at the combine, and the Dallas Cowboys coaches were like, yo, you're probably not going to get drafted. So the week of the draft, I had like 20 teams call me like, listen, we're going to be taking you off our board because we just don't trust the kidney stuff. And so I knew it was going to be a long weekend for me. So day 3 comes to the draft, and Kansas City calls me in the 5th round, and they're like, yo, we're about to take you with the next pick. So everybody gets excited, and then that call never came, And so, again, I'm sitting there, and I'm watching all of these dudes get drafted. I'm like, yo, I'm better than that dude, And so you just develop that shit on your shoulder. And then I grew up here in Jersey, so I grew up a Giants fan. The Giants called me after the draft. And they're like, we want to bring you in. Buffalo called me. Kansas City called me back. And it's one of those moments where you have to think, okay, well, it almost feels like you're under pressure, and you are under pressure because you got to make the right decision. And you don't have like a long time because you're like, all right, I don't want to keep them waiting. Like, this is my opportunity to do whatever. And I remember Paul Lancaster at the time, who was the head of, he was the HPE, head of player engagement at the time, is the one that called me. He's like, hey, listen, man, we want to bring you in. And I just thought about what they had up in Buffalo in terms of wide receivers. And it was like Lee Evans, it was Roscoe, Stevie wasn't Stevie yet, and everybody else. Mm-hmm. The thing with James Hardy might have still been on the team at that time. And then it was just a bunch of other guys that I had never really heard of. So I was like, that's really my best chance to make the team. It was hard to turn down the Giants because I was a diehard Giants fan. But they had Hakeem Nick, they had Steve Smith, the other Steve Smith that was really good for the Giants. I think Mario Manningham was still on the team. And the crazy thing is, Victor Cruz and I, both from Jersey, trained together down in Florida. And they called Victor right after they called me. I was like, nah, I'm gonna go up to Buffalo. And then he obviously took that opportunity and went to the Giants, and we both ended up making the team. But the thought of Buffalo just was snow. And I mean, if you've never been to Buffalo, that's all you think of, snow. That's just all. Everybody's like, Buffalo? Oh, no, it's cold up there. But people, like, I still, to this day, I wear so much Buffalo stuff. People are like, yo, you like a diehard Bills fan now? And I'm like, listen, if you lived up there, you'd understand. And I can't really explain it. The city just sucks you in. You become a fan of the team. It is what it is, And from my son, he was born during my first training camp. He's a diehard Bills fan. I have a younger son who's 6. He has no clue, but he's a Bills fan just because. And it just, it just worked out like that, man. And it's been fun. It's been fun to be a part of Bills Mafia. I remember, when back when I was playing, Bills Mafia wasn't really the thing yet. Now it's straight Bills Mafia. Everybody knows Bills Mafia, mm-hmm. and they're really good. So it's been fun to be a part of this ride. Because obviously, when I was there, we were like 8-8, and now to see the team constantly in the playoffs, constantly being talked about, the team contend for Division A and get to the Super Bowl. It's just a great feeling to be a fan.
Now, you talked about being able to keep your kidney and your health under wraps. When did you find out you had the kidney issue, and how are you able to keep your body in such shape? Going back, I imagine you found out sometime in college. So how are you able to first handle that news, being as young as you were, and then being able to keep your body in shape and doing what's necessary to still perform at a high level?
So the kidney, when you have certain kidney diseases, the one that I have is one that progresses very slowly. And so when I was first diagnosed, I was in JUCO. And being 19, 20 years old at the time, it was like I only felt it when I was actually sick. So if I had the flu or something like that, my kidneys would actually flare up, and I would see the side effects from the kidney disease. So other than that, I felt fine. So when I was diagnosed with it, it was like, all right, well, can I still play football? And the doctor was like, yeah, you're just going to have to be on a certain treatment. And to be honest with you, I mean, again, at that age, when you feel fine, you're just like, man, whatever. And so there was no treatment or anything that I really even, stuck to. And once I got to the NFL, though, it did start to progress. And it was something that I dealt with, just nobody else knew. I dealt with it. None of my friends, even to the point when I went into kidney failure in my last year, I remember a bunch of my teammates, my boys, like, yo, why didn't you tell us? Like, man, I never really wanted anybody to know. I never wanted any pity or anything like that. It was just something that I dealt with at home. And so, it was, I think it made me stronger mentally having to play football and be sick that way. It was like, yo, you got to make sure that you're constantly in shape. I would have certain days where I just was tired and nobody knew it. I might have a bad practice because I'm just tired, and so it's funny when I watch guys now, like you watch Travis Hunter play that many plays, and I'm like, I could never play that many plays. Even if I was fully healthy, I don't know if I could do that. But with my kidney disease, I went to the tap my head. Somebody got to get me out of it. So it was a lot to deal with, but I did it the best I could. Stayed in shape. I think the doctors told me because you were in such good shape is what kept your kidneys from progressing a lot.
How are you doing now?
Now I'm good. This December will be 10 years since kidney transplant. So I'm sure my father gave me a kidney.
Wow.
So I'm sure he and I will sit down together and do something. Who knows? The last couple of years, my son's football team has been in nationals, for youth, and we won nationals last year, and that's always that same week. It's December 3rd. And so I haven't been able to really celebrate with my dad, but it's been good. I've been healthy. There are certain things that I always deal with. I have to take meds for the rest of my life, but for the most part, I'm good, man. I'm enjoying life.
Marlon, this gives me an opportunity to share with you guys my greatest athletic achievement. Don't dread it. It's actually not bad. My dad passed away of kidney disease at 66. He had a really rare form of diabetes caused by taking lithium for many years called diabetes insipidus. And I ran the Notre Dame Marathon in 2011 in his honor, and we raised about $6,000 for kidney disease. So, and it actually finished up at the 50-yard line of Notre Dame Stadium. And I thought I was running through the tunnel of Notre Dame Stadium until I got the video that they charge you $29.99 to view afterwards, and I wasn't running. I was like waddling into the tunnel and into the 50-yard line. But I made it through the full marathon, in honor of my dad and kidney disease. So that's my greatest athletic achievement. Not quite, D1 and NFL, but kidney disease is close to my heart. And congratulations, Donald, on 10 years. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a ride, but hopefully I can get another however many years out of this one. You see, I'm starting to go gray, right? So my dad is fully gray, and I have it all up here too. Yeah, Marlon, it's ridiculous, man.
Man, hey, listen, just shave it off. That's why I'm like,
no, I embrace the gray. But my entire family is gray. My grandmother, grandfather, gray. My father, I'll be 36 years. I'm pushing. But once I got the transplant and I started to see some gray sprinkle in, he's like, "Yo, it's a kidney." To the point where I actually asked my doctor, like, is that a thing? Like, is this because I got my dad's kidney? He was like, no, man, it has nothing to do with that. But I'll give him that. I let get that little down to think that my gray hair is coming from his kidney.
That's amazing. So before we let you go here, Donald, on the other show we always do something fun at the very end. Can you sing us 10 seconds of the Youngstown State fight song?
Oh man, I wish I remembered that song. I do not remember. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, listen, I went to Youngstown. It wasn't my best 2 years. I wasn't really the happiest out there because I felt like I should have been Division I. So I wasn't like a guy who, when you talk about what's it like being in Chico where everybody kind of has their own agenda, I probably was that guy. at Youngstown. So the fight song, I don't remember it. I try to stay away from people. Whenever people bring up Youngstown, they start talking about the penguins. They're like, "Oh, so you were a penguin, like Happy?" I'm like, yeah, "Whatever." So yeah, I don't know that one.
Fair enough. Any closing thoughts for us?
Hey man, you know what? I'm looking forward to if I get a chance to go out there and see Ohio State and Notre Dame game. I'm sure I'm going to hit up Marlon, and I'll probably talk junk, and it just has to go down like that. Typically, when they play, we hadn't talked in a minute, but I'll send a random message like, "Hey man, Ohio State, Michigan, thinking," something like that. He'll get some text messages from me this year, and hopefully
send them away. I still have the picture of the last time we did the Ohio State Michigan when you were in Buffalo. Yeah.
I got to get back up to Buffalo too, man. So they played the Cowboys on my birthday, which I don't know if I really want to go to that game. It's December 17th, and I'm like, but it's like the only time that I can because football season for me runs to like the first week of December. So I guess I'm gonna have to go. I'm pretty sure to be like snowing or something crazy.
Well, you could be like Ryan Fitzpatrick and go shirtless in the club section.
Yeah, in the club section. Yeah, definitely. Fitz, man, he's like on commercials now. I'm like, Fitz, who are you, bro?
That's great. Thanks so much for your time, Donald. This was a lot of fun. I'm sure it was for Marlon too.
Absolutely. Good luck.
Thank you guys
this season.
Yeah, thank you. And Marlon, you get the text messages from me. Y'all better not lose to Youngstown. I'm just letting you know.
Hey, listen, if we lose that game, I can tell you what, there will be no national championship for us. That will keep us out of it for certain. And I think there will be a lot of people calling for a lot of coaches' heads if that happens.
That might be the last week of the show too, Donald. It might be the end of our show here. State game. Notre Dame goes to NC State noon on Saturday. Just got to get a win there, and then we have Central Michigan at home before the big September 23rd game with Ohio State. Maybe talk to me about one other game that you're looking forward to this weekend. I know Alabama, Texas is up there. What's caught your eye for week 2?
Really, that's the game that I want to watch. That's the one game that I'm looking at is Alabama, Texas. Revenge. Texas is already talking about, they thought they should have won that game. They had the opportunity to win that game. And it's going to be fun. I mean, I'm laughing at the fact that last year Texas was going to put Alabama's band in the upper deck, so they didn't bring them. And now Alabama's returning the favor and said, okay, well, you wanted to put our band in the upper deck? We're going to do the same thing. So good luck. What that looks like. It's all the mind games that we talk about and that you look at what coaches try to do. But definitely, this is going to be a game. It's, as we like to say back in the day when I grew up, like must-see TV. This is going to be must-see TV. Alabama, young quarterback, they're at home. They look well last week, but Texas can match them. Texas is going to have athletes that can go toe-to-toe with Alabama. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Texas can really go into Alabama and do what they do, score some points, and if their defense can hold up against it, because if not, then that juggernaut of Alabama's offense is going to get rolling, and Alabama always plays tough defense, so it's going to be a fun game to watch, rather, and I'm looking forward to seeing that game, and that's the game I have circled as what I'm going to be watching next week.
It's like almost the two biggest brands in college football, right? And this sounds kind of weird to say, they have great uniforms. Both teams, right? Like it's a good looking matchup on TV. Alabama Stadium always plays well on TV, and Texas will probably have some burnt orange on, and Alabama's red, the Crimson Tide. Like it's just a good looking game on TV, if nothing else.
Great looking game. Yep, that's going to look good. I mean, you've got Star Factor, you got Ohio State ties. Ewers is going to come back. I think he got injured in that game last year, so couldn't finish it. And Texas looked good when he was at the helm. He was moving the ball. He made some good throws. So we're going to see what it looks like. And if that O-line can protect him, if they can pick up the blitz that Alabama's going to do, but Alabama's going to be strong up front like they always are. So it's going to be a great test and one that Texas needs to be able to hold up against if they have any chance of winning their division. But again, it's one of those early games. So the loser is not necessarily out of the college football playoff scenario. But it's definitely one of those games where I love to see those top 25 matchups, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. So, before we let everybody go, next week, we're going to be back Tuesday at 3 o'clock, like we will every week throughout the college football season. We're hoping to have my personal friend, Jay Taylor, who is a fire chief in Dallas, Texas.